With us now, NDSU women's basketball head coach, that's Jory Collins. And Jory, first and foremost, thanks for making the time. And, it's kind of crazy to go back at this time last year. You were being introduced as the next head women's basketball coach, the Bison, and now all of a sudden you going into year number 2, and just like you and everybody else having to deal with COVID-19 right now, what's the biggest difference, I would say, Jory, outside of COVID-19 that you've seen with your program being in year number 2 kind of on the early onset than in year number 1?
Yeah, it's been a great first year. Obviously, last year at this time, I was just about to be introduced, and then a year later, I would say the familiarity with just everything, how our athletic department works, the relationships you've been able to build with your players, the recruiting relationships in the area. All those things are well on their way. Obviously, still really early in our tenure, but really excited about the progress we made, some of the roads we've laid. And, it stinks right now that we can't be in the gym, with our kids getting better. But everybody's in the same boat, and we'll get back out there at some point. When we do, we're going to be really excited about what we're going to be.
What did you take away from your first year season that you guys, the program, when its first Summit League game in the tournament, beating Denver for the first time since the program was in the Summit League and able to compete over a decade ago? What did you take from your first year as a Bison basketball coach with your staff and your players that are coming back, Jory?
Yeah, I think, the big thing for me was getting through the conference slate and just really getting a better feel for who we're competing against night in and night out in January, February, and March. You obviously know about the good teams, and I've had some familiarity with some of the other coaches, but you didn't compete against them on a regular basis. So just going through, understand kind of team strength, team styles, coaching styles, all those kind of things give you a much better perspective on what kind of players you need to be recruiting, what kind of things you need to be better at, worse at, what's more important when we're trying to win as many conference games as possible.
And you mentioned about the players there, Jory. What kind of player would you say needs to fit your system, or what kind of player are you looking for to fit that system, bringing in someone who has a certain skill set, and every year changes because in college you're going to lose some girls where there might be transfer. They might say, hey, I'm done playing collegiate basketball, or they just got to graduate. So what kind of player are you looking for to fit your system here in the next couple of years?
Well, this league is obviously top-heavy with South Dakota, and South Dakota State is two really elite programs. I mean, you got to find kids that are ultra-competitive, that have some self-confidence of wanting to go up against some good players and be a difference maker. So we're out there looking for kids that are not only skilled, it's a highly skilled league. The Summit League's full of players that can dribble, pass, and shoot, and a lot of them have some size to go with it. Athleticism was something that we felt like we needed to address this year, recruiting-wise, and thought we hit that out of the park as far as just some movement skills for some of our kids. Our style of play, we're hoping to play a little bit faster than we were able to last year. I felt like as a coaching staff, we had to take a little bit more control offensively, maybe to give us the best chance last year, and I'm hoping to take the reins off a little bit when we have a little bit more playmaking and maybe some speed and able to play at a pace that's a little faster.
Before we talk about the girls that are coming back for your program and the recruits that are coming in as well, Jory, you mentioned about South Dakota and South Dakota State, and it's no surprise if you look at the Summit League for women's basketball, they've been the mountain to climb, so to speak, in the league over the past decade plus. I guess the question is, when you have a UMKC team that's coming in, which you're familiar with that part of the country, but with your previous stops, and they were a team that was 21-10 last season and finished first in the WAC in the regular season. They come in, Fort Wayne comes out. Where would you say everybody is always chasing the best? It doesn't matter what league, what conference, and you're trying to get yourself up there. What is the gap between USD and South Dakota State right now compared to everybody else in the Summit League?
Well, that's hard to say. I think, USD obviously this past year had a group of players that had played together for 3 and 4 years. Had some juniors and seniors that had just meshed together really well. That doesn't happen all the time, even for the best teams. And they've just been on a terrific run. Both those schools have tremendous coaches, but they're able to get really good players, 4-year players that play a lot together and really understand each other's strengths and weaknesses and just don't have off nights. They have the culture to battle through a bad shooting night, where they can rely on defense and some toughness and some other things that, that they just have as programs. That's what we got to close the talent gap. There's no question about that. We have to keep recruiting higher level players and close that down. And then, for us, you're not going to be able to just all of a sudden just be on that level. It's a process, and we thought we took a step last year. We need to take another big step next year. And then hopefully here real soon we'll be able to compete with those guys and give them a run for the Summit League Championship.
And with the recruits that you have coming in, correct me if I'm wrong, Jory, you got 3 coming in that are from the high school ranks and a couple, 2 of them that you may mention earlier this week from Northern Colorado and Iowa Western, and Kadie Deaton alongside Britney that are coming into your program. So what is this recruiting class, your first full recruiting class after being a year with the Green and Gold? What can fans expect once they get on campus and see these girls for the next couple seasons?
Yeah, we actually have one of the girls we signed in November is a junior college player as well. So we'll have 2 junior college players with 2 years of experience. Reneya Hopkins was the point guard in November that we signed she's from Midwest City, Oklahoma, and somebody that I knew a long time ago. She had a great year this year, was the MVP of her region, was 3rd-team All-American as a point guard. Britney is the other junior college player, Epperson from Iowa Western. She had some injury issues this year, had a terrific freshman year at Lincoln Trail, but just couldn't put it together this year for some things out of her control. But we already were well aware of her and know that that's behind her. Her best basketball is in front of her. She just adds some size, really good rim runner, great hands in the post. You can't have too many big guys, to help you out and provide the depth there. And then our 2 high school kids, Abby Schulte and Kylie Strop, both had terrific seasons as well. I think Kylie was the All-Northwest Wisconsin Player of the Year, was a first-team All-State kid. Abby was a first-team All-State kid in 4A in Minnesota. Both of them are really good ball handlers, have a chance to be great defenders, which is another area we need to get better at. And then Kadie Deaton, who transferred from Northern Colorado. We actually had Kadie committed here for the last 6 or 7 weeks, but just couldn't talk about her till yesterday. She's somebody that I'd recruited previously and kind of knew, had a relationship with her. She is long and athletic, just much more dynamic, with the ball in transition, ability to get to the rim, great passer. She's somebody that we think is probably going to be a good difference maker for us when we can get her on the floor.
And, in the world of college athletics, Jory, you're looking at girls that, as you mentioned, some might be 2 years, some might be 1, some might be 3, some might be 4, depending on where they're going. How much as a coaching staff, when you came into this program, you already within Kansas and Emporia State, you knew certain girls at different levels in different parts of the country. How are you utilizing that at NDSU right now in those previous relationships from when you are a head coach, able to bring some talent, size, and athleticism to what you're saying into this program?
Yeah, well, it's helped us. Obviously, we were able to get Ryan Cobbins last year really late, right when we got the job here. And I wouldn't have been able to do that if we wouldn't have had a previous relationship there. And then Reneya in November, I coached her aunt at Emporia State. And so I'd started to recruit her there before I'd moved on to Kansas. So those were players that you knew about, you knew were good enough, and just hopeful that the relationship was good enough. They were going to trust you to come up to Fargo, a place they had no experience with. And we're excited to have those guys. Obviously, we want our bread and butter to be regional kids. And obviously excited to get Abby and Kylie, from within 3, 4, 5 hour radius there. Kadie as well, up here, upper Midwest kids. But, as we start to put our roster together, it was important that we get our classes a little bit evened out. Our junior college player, we don't have, but maybe 2 juniors going into next year, both junior college players. So it was important for us to make sure that we're able to get 2 or 3 kids in every class here and not have a huge class of 6 or 7, and not have an empty class as well. So those are all things that go into it. But the most important thing is finding kids that are fit your culture, what you're trying to do, are competitive enough to want to do it, and just kids that are good fit for representing us in North Dakota State.
How big is it, Jory, when kids are coming in, whether it be the JUCO ranks or some of the girls now that you've had in terms of transfers that maybe got to play a season at a Northern Colorado or maybe an SMU type of program? How big is that when they come into your program that, yes, they're still practicing behind the scenes when they're taking that year transfer, but when they're coming in, they already have that taste of what a college-level basketball environment is about?
Yeah, we're going to get Heaven and Marie available this year, who had to sit out last year. Both played a ton as freshmen at their other schools. And, their year with us was huge. They both made tremendous strides just in strength and conditioning, and really, helped themselves out with a year off. And then obviously getting out to practice with us, but then even watch, be in film. Being able to see it from maybe a different point of view from non-player standpoint as far as not being able to be out there, I think helps a ton. Every player I've ever had that had to redshirt and came back healthy was just a different player, had a different mentality for it. And you get, junior college kids are different. There's always a tremendous adjustment period for anybody that's new, whether you're a freshman or a transfer. But the fact that, Britney and Reneya have played 2 years of college basketball, the adjustment period for a routine, showing up to practice, what it's like, strength and conditioning, those things aren't so new. The adjustment period for that's quite a bit faster.
And you mentioned about molding the program. I don't think it matters what level, what age. When you are bringing a staff in and you're bringing players in, you might have some players come in and some players will leave for other schools. How much are you having conversations, Jory, in your first year with girls that were number 1 on the roster to number 10, so to speak, on the roster in terms of playing time, and just saying, hey, here, so I see you. I know the previous coaching staff might have saw you this way, but here's how I see you with our program and the fit. How much are you talking with players that are coming in, but also the current team and players that have left the program, and whether, again, it might be for going for education or just looking for something different? How much are you having those conversations from your first year as a head coach, Jory?
Yeah, well, those are conversations you have, regularly. We've met with all of our players. We have some players not returning for a variety of reasons. We have a great group of players that are returning. That's part of college basketball right now, and obviously with us being a new coaching staff, and I'm usually pretty blunt and straightforward on this is where I would see you if you were here. And sometimes that's not the best picture for people individually, even though it may be the best thing for our team. And those are tough conversations. There's no question about it. Nobody gets in the business to hurt kids' feelings or put them down in any way. You want them to be in the best opportunity for them to have as much enjoyment, as much success as they can. Sometimes that's with you, and sometimes that's with somebody else. Mm-hmm. But we're pretty straightforward in where we see you. We'll let you know that the competition is going to be stiff. I'm really excited about our team next year and just the ability that we're going to have in practice to have some matchups that are going to be ultra competitive. For the playing time that's going to be out there.
Hey, Jory, I know you mentioned it too with COVID-19 and everyone's going through it. As a coach right now, what's the one thing that just has you chomping at the bit that you can't do with this team, or maybe even your coaching staff that might be more virtual meetings or Zoom calls or FaceTimes that normally was, a person-to-person interaction that was within 6 feet that now, you can't do that with the CDC guidelines, Jory?
Right. I mean, that's an easy one. I mean, just being in the gym with our players. I mean, this is a time, there's going to be about an 8-week period here where we were going to be able to get in with one player at a time, maybe 2 players at a time, and really, make some steps forward in their individual progress and skill set. Weren't planning on doing a ton of team things this spring, but just individually trying to help people reach their potential. That's what I miss because that's what I love. I mean, practice is my favorite thing. And so just missing out on that time, being in the gym with those guys and helping them grow is what is hard. We stay connected with phone calls and Zoom calls, and, I get to see them on the screen every week, but it's just not the same as getting in there and getting busy and working out together.
Final thing for you, Coach, before we let you go, and thank you very much again for your time. As Fort Wayne leaves the program, and it's not the program, the conference, you get a new team in that was formerly part of the Summit League in UMKC, and I know you probably know that Kangaroo program in some capacity, being down at Emporia State in Kansas. What is a UMKC program, even though you're going to have to know more once we get into the Summit League, and you're going to know more in terms of their style of play and coaching and the rivalry that'll grow with them back in the Summit League, but what does a UMKC program bring to this conference moving forward, Jory?
Well, obviously they were a very good team last year. JC Hoyt, very familiar with JC. She's a small-town Kansas kid. Actually recruited her way back in the day a little bit. Played against her, had to coach against her. Great coach, basketball family. Her mom's a very good high school coach out in western Kansas. She's just a winner, has always been a winner, and is going to have winning kids and a winning program. Has done a great job turning UMKC around. They just weren't very good for a long time, and has got them obviously, at a much higher level. I think for the league, just having a team back in Kansas City for travel, just the geography of it makes a whole lot more sense. I think for all of us. In that regard. So obviously that'll be great for me. I get to get back real close to home at least once a year, play those guys. So I'm hoping we can fill their gym up with a bunch of green.
It'll be a lot of fun to see that green and gold down again in the Kansas City area. Jory, as always, thank you very much for your time. Best to you and your family, obviously, during this COVID-19 and coronavirus pandemic, and we'll speak to you hopefully at a gym sooner rather than later, okay?
Sounds good. Thanks, Chase.